Connection Advanced Card Designer Capabilities with API Support. It's a massively long title, but I'm going to do live demos and explain what this is all about. But technically, what we can do with this new feature, which is currently in public preview, you are able to use APIs within Viva Connection Card Designer. You might not be super familiar with Viva Connection, might not be super familiar with Card Designer. I'll show all of that for you in a second. Basic idea here is that you are able to have an easy way of communicating with your frontline workers or your employees in general, regardless of the device what they're using. So Viva Connection is all about providing you that primary communication, corporate communication channel for sharing news and updates, and most commonly used tools for your frontline workers or for your employees, regardless are they using desktop or a tablet or a or mobile. Even personally, I've actually started using Viva Connection mobile quite frequently because it is surprisingly great tool for accessing the information like the next salary day or the submitting a vacation times and all of that. So there's a lot of power on the Viva Connection in a mobile experiences. Again, daily employee experiences, communications. There's tools and apps which you can surface as I targeted for your end users. You can easily access your resources. So for example, the links and tools and all of that directly from the Viva Connection. Viva Connection also, by the way, is completely free. The baseline Viva Connection doesn't require any licenses, all of that. So it's really providing that personalized communication channel on top of the SharePoint experiences as well. So this does not remove the SharePoint experiences. It abstracts the SharePoint experiences and amplifies or makes it even better. Now, we talked about already the fact that there's 3 different experiences. We have the desktop experience, which is evolving quite significantly. This picture is missing actually the desktop announcement features, which is already out. We have the tablet experiences and the mobile experiences. But basic idea, again, is that regardless of which device the end user is accessing, they can easily stay up to date with the corporate community company information, and they can easily access the most widely used applications and tooling by using those cards. And now with this new feature, we are not just asking people to build those cards and extensibility using a SharePoint framework or using bot framework. We can actually create Graph API powered cards just by using adaptive card functionality. And that's actually really, really cool. So in general, Viva Connection provides a powerful and extensibility platform. You can design different kind of experiences based on the company requirements. And then the advanced API support here means the following. You're able to, if you enable the setting in the tenant level, I'll show you this step by step today. You will have to do this. Tenant administrator needs to enable the feature. After that, it will actually enable the card designer to have an option of hitting APIs. And that means that you are able to build simple cards which are dynamic. As an example, the pictures which you can see on the right side, my upcoming meetings or my latest emails. These are dynamic cards which can be then easily accessed using the mobile phone or your desktop among the other cards within a dashboard, and they can show you the latest information by hitting the Graph APIs and then surfacing that information within the card designer. Only administrator approved Microsoft Graph APIs are available to be used, and the first preview version is released in December 2023, so this is already available. There's a documentation link below there, and this will actually get more evolved within 2024, so we're working on an updated versions already to make it even easier. And for example, there's a discussions on maybe the card designer should be talking with Microsoft Power Platform connectors to get those API connections in place and all of that. So there's potential directions where we might be going with this one based on the feedback, what we're getting from the companies. Now, let's actually have a look on what does that mean in practice. So I'm going to actually start by not having a super polished dashboard. I'm going to start by having a clean dashboard to show you what it means in practice to enable the feature, and also what it means that the card designer can be used to decorate the dashboard. So again, the The Viva Connection dashboard typically have a lot of cards, but we do have a clean one today because we want to start from a clean one just to show you how to use this in practice. I'm going to start by creating a card here, and in this case, we're going to concentrate on the card designer. Obviously, out of the box within Viva Connection, we're providing a lot of different capabilities and cards. You're able to do cards which are dynamically linking the bots, Teams application, Power Platform apps. So one option, for example, for Viva is that if you have a lot of Power apps, but your end users can't find the relevant Power apps for them, you can actually aggregate them directly within the Viva Connection. That's one way of then accessing easily all of the different core Power apps within your tenant. Now, in our case, we really want to focus on the card designer. And the card designer is something which me as an end user or the person who has the permissions of creating this and dashboard can actually modify and make the card look nicer. So in my case, we could do something like my upcoming meetings. And then we can select the icon here. I can change the icon to be something, for example, calendar checkmark, doesn't really matter. We can do adjustments. We can adjust the card size to be medium, large, and whatever we want. And the card action, what happens when a user clicks the card. So we could be redirecting to the Power Apps, Teams application, bot discussion, or we could do something else like show a quick view. And the quick view is something which means that you're not redirected, you are already surfacing information from that application directly within the dashboard. And that's kind of the option here. Let's call this one by emails. And then when you click that one, we're going to show quick view. And then the key point here, as we get started on creating these things, we can actually see, let me do here, where is the apply button? There's no apply button. Let me publish that. Just to see first that we're actually already adjusting things. It's saying my upcoming meetings. Let me go back in edit mode. The thing what I was about to say or update is this one, my meetings, and we can see live my upcoming meetings. So we can see live all of the adjustments, what we can see on the dashboard. Now, in our case, it's actually by default saying this, advanced features have not been enabled by the administrator. And this is because within this tenant, which I'm using, we have not yet enabled the advanced API features. And we're going to walk through all of the steps now within this demo to understand how we can make that happen. So let me actually do republish. And let's actually then start looking into how do we make all of those functionalities available. So first of all, if I run get SBO tenant using the SharePoint Online PowerShell, which is the way we are controlling and adjusting the settings, we can see this setting here, which is data access in card designers enabled. This is a new property which is available in a new SharePoint Online PowerShell versions. I think starting from late November. I think we had actually 2 releases since November, but both of them actually have this setting. To be able to use the APIs, I will actually need to enable that setting, and I have the setting here. And so set SBO tenant is data access in card designer enabled, and I want to put that value to true. And that will then enable the API functionality within the card designer. Now, if that's the case, let's go then on here and let's go to the edit mode. Let's modify the card. And if I now scroll down, we can actually see that we have a bit of an additional settings. Not yet, actually. Let me do republish. Let me refresh. Hopefully, we don't actually run into too bad caching situations. There we go. And let's go to the edit mode and let's try it again. Yes, now the settings are available. There we go. So what happened here is that it's no longer saying that the advanced scenarios are not available. It actually gives us the data source option. The data source option to call SharePoint API or to call Microsoft Graph API. So what this means is that then we're able to use our template JSON as an adaptive card output together with some API call output to combine and create a dynamic view within the dashboard, within that card, within the quick view of the card. So whenever the button is being clicked, what is actually being shown in here. Now, in my case, in this tenant, we do not have yet any permissions for Graph APIs enabled. So I'm going to walk through how do we do that, and then we're going to build two different cards together within a dashboard, one for the meetings and one for the emails. So I'm going to actually cancel this one for now, and we can do a quick republish and close on things. Now, there's a few things what we need to make sure that that are functioning properly. So we need to go to the admin. We need to make sure that we have app catalog within a tenant. By default, a SharePoint or by default Microsoft 365 tenant does not have an app catalog. So we need to actually create that for SharePoint. And it's a bit of a bummer that it's not by default there, but we can easily create that by going to the SharePoint Admin Center underneath the Advanced View, underneath the settings. No, underneath the more features. Now that I'm actually remembering the right path, we have the apps section in here. And first time I'm clicking that open, it will actually make sure that our app catalog is created. So now in my case, the app catalog already exists. So I'm being redirected to the app catalog here. But if it would be not existing, it would actually create the app catalog to be available for SharePoint Framework solutions. And these same solutions are being used by the card designer. The second thing what we need to double check in our case, because we don't have any SharePoint Framework solutions in here, the API permissions which we have granted for SharePoint Framework solutions actually also apply for the card designer. So by default, me as a card designer, I cannot hit any random APIs in Microsoft Graph because that would be potentially a security risk. With that card designer, for now at least, is following up on those permissions which have been granted for SharePoint Framework solutions. In our case, we don't have a SharePoint Framework solutions deployed, so we don't actually have any permissions yet created, but we can actually create those manually as well. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to API access, and that's going to basically make sure that my SharePoint Framework app registration is created within my tenant settings. I'm going to show you this one in practice in a second. You can access this in location from the SharePoint Admin Center. Also, if you go to the API access and this page, it's going to actually take a while to load first time you're there because it's creating the app permission registration directly to the Azure AD or to the Entra ID, whatever we want to call it nowadays. So now when the page has been loaded, we know that it's actually the baseline configuration for API access is working properly. How would I then actually grant those permissions? Well, in the case of SharePoint Framework Solution, when SharePoint Framework Solution is getting deployed, it will request those needed permissions. In our case, as we're using the cards, and this is a preview version and preview experience, there's no easy way to do this other than actually going to the Entra ID and manually grant those permissions. So let's actually do that. So let me go to the Microsoft 365 Admin Center and show all. And I want to actually go to the identity side because that's actually to Entra ID or Azure AD location. It's not that just the identity, it's all of the other settings in a tenant as well. And every single Microsoft 365 tenant has this. In here, I can then go to the applications and then I can go to app registrations. And in the apps registrations, underneath owned application, which is the default thing, I don't have anything. But if I go to the all applications, we will actually see all of the registered principals within a tenant. And these are the ones which are now the interesting one, the SharePoint Online Client Extensibility Web Application Principal. This is the app registration in the tenant, which was created as we went to the app API page and admin page. And this is the one which is controlling what permissions we are granting the card designer to have or SharePoint Framework Solutions to have. And we can actually manually grant those permissions here as well. So what that means is that now I can actually go to the API permissions and I can add permissions. And I want to grant people, the card designer, people to be able to hit certain permissions. So I'm going to use Microsoft Graph in my case. And in our case, we're going to use delegated permissions. And then I'm going to grant access to calendar. And underneath calendars, there's a lot of permissions in here. We want to grant access to read user calendars because we're looking into granting the application permissions to show current users' calendar information. That's good. So let's actually do that one. And then I want to add one more, which is about the emails. So I'm going to actually do the email, quick email API implementation as well. And let me actually go directly in here so we can see all of the mail settings. Maybe. Email. There we go. No, I want to have mail read. Do I need to do this? Yes, I need to do this. There we go. Now it's working properly. Read user email is the permissions, what I'm looking into doing. And I'm going to actually add a permission over there. So now there's two different permissions being granted. Now coming back on the question related on site collection specific app catalog for this purpose, unfortunately, this has to be done in the primary app catalogs because again, behind of the API calls, we're using the tenant level permissions. So this does not, you're not able to just grant tenant level permissions or these craft permissions to a solution which is in app catalog, in a site collection app catalog. Now, what we're doing here is that we're looking into giving these two permissions, calendar read and mail read, dynamically for the dashboard designer so that the card designer can actually use them. And in my case, I'm going to do grant admin consent. So the administrator actually is granting permissions to use those. And now we can see the status here, which is basically saying that permission granted, that permission granted. And that means that delegated permissions is being granted to use these two things. And that again means as it's delegated, it's the combination of this app registry app which is running and the user specific permission. So technically what it means is that as a user, I can access then my calendar information or any other calendar which I have been granted permissions using any other exchange permissions. But technically simplifying things, that was highly confusing. Simplifying things, what it means is that me as an end user can access my calendar information and I can access my mail information when I'm using this application. Simplifying things, that's kind of how it works. Now, as I granted those permissions in here, now what it means is that I can actually go back on the dashboard. Let me refresh. Let me actually do one more hard refresh, double checking again. Just a bit of a caching going on in some of these things, so we need to be a bit thoughtful on that one. I'm going to go to my meetings, and the idea here was to show the upcoming meetings which are happening. Oop, that's not what I was intended to click. So I'm going to scroll back here. I'm going to go and select data source being a Microsoft Graph API. And then we need to actually figure out which API. So in my case, I've actually saved the API information in my sample data. So what we're going to do is then we're going to paste in the API information graph API information, which we're going to hit. Easiest way to figure out these things would be going to Graph Explorer. Graph Explorer is the location where you're able to test things and API things. What is my, for example, my email? How would that look like? And when I'm executing, how the output would look like. And then you're able to actually figure out what is the output and how do I combine that, for example, with Adaptive Card. All of that information is available directly in Microsoft Graph Explorer. Now, in my case, we actually already prepared a bit of a more complicated thing. Or nicer, more polished UI. So I'm hitting V1, me events. I'm going to take 5. I don't think that filter actually works in this endpoint. And then we're selecting certain fields. I can click test, and that will validate that my call is actually working. There's no exceptions. So, and I got actually data JSON response preview. So I got actually data back within a JSON format. So technically, I know that my API call is now working. Now, to be able to present that nicely, I will need to have a template JSON. Again, we could use Adaptive Card Designer to come up with a nice designer, which we're going to use for presenting. This is the Adaptive Card Designer at Adaptive Cards IO and Designer. And in here, I have prepared a custom UX already, so I can actually validate that it works nicely within Adaptive Card. Let me go to Viva Connection. And that's not what I'm actually trying to do. There we go. That's what I'm trying to do. That's the data thing. And here's my cool looking template in Adaptive Card. So basic idea here in my Adaptive Card is that I'm showing a nice picture, and then I'm showing a text, and then I have a loop which is going through and basically looping the upcoming meetings in a loop, whatever came out in the API call. A bit complicated, but again, I can now come in here. I can copy my layout for the for the upcoming meeting, presenting the upcoming meetings. There's my cool looking layout. I can say apply, and we can say publish, and everything should be working now properly. So whenever I'm clicking the emails or the card, we will show a quick view, and we should be getting the end results out, and dashboard would be looking. Now, in my case, something is wrong. Let's actually see if I can figure out what I did wrong. All right. Oh, let me actually move that one over there. Let me go in edit mode. Let me go in here, and let me see if I can actually get this one fixed properly. We're gonna actually data source, for whatever reason, is being reset to define your own data. That's the wrong thing. So call graph API. Let me do this one more time. And I will take the graph endpoint. I will get rid of this one. There we go. Let's click test. There we go. Data endpoint is working. And let me click apply. Let me go in here, double checking. Hopefully it didn't reset. It did not reset everything. I will do refresh, I'll republish. And on this time, clicking the emails, we can actually see my upcoming emails directly from my calendar. And within the individual, not emails, sorry, the meetings, and within the individual meeting info, for example, sync with Melissa, I can directly then link this one, and that will be redirecting me to the meeting details directly in Outlook. This deep link does work within a mobile and within a tablet, and then I can access the information and join the meeting. So that's actually pretty complicated way for the initial setup, but then when after the initial setup is being done, now my card designer, the person who is responsible of actually creating these cards, can do a lot of cool stuff. So now I can go to the card designer. I can, for example, modify this to say title to say emails, and let's modify the icon to be something relevant. That's not what I was trying to do. Let's go to the icon selection, change that one. Let's say mail, and select mail there. And then I can go and say latest emails, my latest emails. Whenever the card is being clicked, what's going to happen? We're going to actually show the quick view, so we can easily access the information. Let's actually say emails. Now we can see the typo there. That's not meeting. Why is it saying emails? My brain is doing two things at the same time. This is the one which I want to do emails. The other one is the one which is planned to do actually meetings. So here I have a templating JSON. Let me go and copy that one. And there we go. And in our case, for the emails, because we granted that permission, the email URL is a bit different. Let's see what we're looking into doing here. And we're hitting the graph endpoint, we're hitting the V1 endpoint, and we're saying me, mail folders, inbox, and then we're taking top 5 emails from there. I can again click the test. That will basically give me the data JSON response preview here. That means that it's working. And now I can say apply. Before I test that one, I will actually come in here and fix one more thing and saying meetings. There we go. Now it makes more sense. And now I can republish, and we can double check that the email section is working properly as well. So this one is for the latest meetings, which are coming to the upcoming meetings, my upcoming meetings using the Graph API. And the other one is my latest emails. And there we go. So in the role of Nestor, apparently I have sent him an email related on PMP Weekly interview, and then the Nestor has sent an email to himself. And again, here as well, we have a deep linking and support directly going to the Outlook. So you're able to access the information directly from here. So that's actually really, really cool. So again, the idea being that the fact that then regardless of the device, you have a nice quick dashboard. You can easily access, oh, those are my upcoming meetings. I don't need to flip between the application. You can just create a one card which works in any device, and you can easily access the latest emails and also the latest meetings. Cool. Quickly on the slides in here, The card designer experience which is showed today is a bit complicated, and as you saw that it's pretty small, all of the URL testing and all of that gets complicated. So in early 2024, we will actually have a much more sophisticated designer in place. So you're able to have a more dynamic previews and capabilities and all of that available as you're designing those cards. We'll get you more tutorial videos, documentation, all of that available as part of the next release. Currently, we have a relatively small, minimal documentation in place, how to enable this and get some preview feedback. But basic idea again is to empower the dashboard designers so that they're able to hit the APIs, they're able to do things without writing code. Yes, you need to understand graph APIs, you need to understand adaptive cards, but no code needed as such, which is really, really cool.